For a long time, there was this hopeful belief that with each new generation, things would naturally get better, that younger people would grow up more progressive, more emotionally intelligent, more accepting. And for a while, it felt like we were on track. With more access to information, more conversations around mental health and gender equality, it seemed like boys were becoming more self-aware and empathetic. But that's not what's happening now. In fact, it's the opposite. Young men today, particularly Gen Z, aren't just absorbing casual, ambient sexism from the world around them the way previous generations did. They're being exposed to misogyny as a full-blown ideology. And they're getting it younger, faster, and more directly than ever before. This isn't your dad's unconscious bias. This is content that's designed to recruit. Misogyny used to be something you picked up from your environment. A sexist joke here, a media stereotype there. It was messy, inconsistent, and often unspoken. Most men didn't even realize they were internalizing it. It was just part of the air they breathed. Now, it's organized, packaged, monetized, delivered to your phone in 60-second videos that rack up millions of views. And boys aren't just stumbling across it, they're being targeted. Red pill creators, manosphere influencers, alpha male channels, and incel-adjacent podcasts have created an entire belief system around male resentment. These aren't random YouTube rants. They're full frameworks that explain the world to boys in terms of power, dominance, and control. Women, in this worldview, are seen as threats, resources, or obstacles, but never as equals. And because it's all wrapped in the language of truth, logic, and self-improvement, it doesn't feel like bigotry. It feels like enlightenment. What makes this worse is that boys are being exposed to this content before they've had a chance to form a solid understanding of relationships, emotional intelligence, or even their own identities. The algorithms that power platforms like TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram don't care what you're ready for, they care what gets clicks. So a curious 13-year-old might start with a fitness video, and a few weeks later be watching clips of a man in sunglasses explaining that women are only valuable until they hit 25. That's not education. That's a funnel. This is one of the key differences between older generations and Gen Z. Older men learned sexism passively, almost by accident. Gen Z boys are being actively trained in it, and it's happening fast. What's especially alarming is how this ideological shift is creating a growing divide between young men and women. Girls are often growing up surrounded by narratives about empowerment, consent, self-worth, and therapy culture. They're being encouraged to speak up, to prioritize boundaries, to know their value. Meanwhile, boys are being fed a backlash. They're being told those same girls are manipulative, that feminism has gone too far, that being soft is weak, and that the only way to succeed is by dominating the game before you get played. It's not hard to see how these conflicting worldviews are setting young men and women on completely different tracks. We're not just raising a generation with some communication issues, we're raising two groups who fundamentally disagree on what respect even is. This isn't just an internet problem, it's a real-world problem with long-term consequences. The boys absorbing this content today will grow into men who make decisions about hiring, policy, relationships, families, and justice. And the earlier someone adopts an ideology, the more deeply it becomes part of their worldview. We are not heading toward a world where misogyny is fading. We are heading toward one where it's rebranded as fact, as science, as strategy. And when it gets internalized early enough, it doesn't feel like prejudice. It feels like common sense. Some people will say this is just a phase, that teenage boys are always edgy and angry, and they'll grow out of it. But this isn't just edge. This is structure. This is worldview. And the platforms delivering it aren't going away. They're scaling. So no, men aren't getting better. At least not as a group. Not when the loudest, most charismatic role models they have are telling them women are the enemy. What we're seeing now isn't a lack of progress. It's a backlash to progress. A rejection of empathy, equality, and emotional growth, all wrapped in the language of reason and reality. It's not subtle, it's not passive, it's not unconscious, it's deliberate. And unless we start talking about it with the seriousness it deserves, that divide between men and women, especially young ones, is only going to get wider.